I just realized that this is episode 52, and since I have been posting podcast episodes weekly, and there are 52 weeks a year, this must be my 1 year anniversary. I checked when I started and realized it's actually not quite the right date yet, but I'll treat it like an anniversary anyway because of what happened, which I will share with you in this episode. I recently visited my parents in Latvia, which is my birth country, as my regular listeners know. The long flights, time zone changes, and falling off my regular diet, as well as the flu that I contracted during the trip, all took a toll on my body. And on the second morning after I returned, I still felt foggy. And I checked my Facebook account with my foggy brain still in bed and saw a post that triggered something within me. The author of the post was a 44-year-old woman, and in her post, she was talking about how from the time she was 38, wearing size 6, she went up to wear size 14 by the time she was 44, even though she didn't change her diet or her lifestyle. And she said her doctor told her it was because of her hormones, and that she spent 3 years after that believing her doctor, during which she gained 40 pounds. She also shared that she didn't want to accept the verdict, it happens to all of us. So she followed the advice of those who said eat less, move more, and claimed she cut sugars and carbs, tried intermittent fasting, worked out 4 days a week, but kept gaining weight. She also said that she felt hungry all the time and exhausted all the time, so she started to think there was something wrong with her. She said she checked her thyroid, blood sugar, and the results came back normal. She said her hormones were a little bit off, but she was told they were normal for her age. It was a well crafted post made to feel relatable to strong willed and determined women who had been trying all kinds of things hoping to lose weight but failed. But then the post made a pivot. The woman said she understood it wasn't her hormones, it was her nervous system. And of course, then there was an app, a quiz, a method, and a link. I checked out the app. The free version allows you to track your daily habits, create a personalized routine, guided journaling, and help to stay motivated with self improvement challenges. The paid version, though, offered the same but enhanced using the words in that description, such as full access, unlimited, customizable, and engaging, before the very same features you get in the free version. As a 56-year-old who has been through the perimenopausal age and have had all kinds of symptoms, and as someone who also tends to research and go deep to understand nuances, I hated the thought that the post would mislead women who are desperately looking for help. And that's the reason why I commented quickly, not very thoughtfully though, saying this. It's actually both your hormones and your nervous system. I fixed it without this app. I listened to podcasts and read books. And honestly, I didn't expect much to come back. But within hours, I had women, many women, replying, which podcasts, which books? Some even blamed me. Why say anything at all if you can't explain? And as I read those comments, I had to agree indeed. Why say anything at all if I can't explain? So I scripted a promise that I placed under those replies saying that I'd create a podcast episode to explain. And now this is me doing exactly that. But I want to say something up front. I will be able to barely scratch the surface because the issue is complex. It's if something clicks, at least you'll know what to look up. I'll also say this clearly. I'm not a medical doctor. I am not diagnosing anyone or prescribing a treatment. I'll approach this as a former translator. While in Latvia for decades, my job was to work with complex information. And when I prepared to interpret orally, I would go through large volumes of unfamiliar information. So on the day of the assignment, I'd be able to do my job well. See, in consecutive translation, a translator might have to listen for 5 to 10 minutes before the speaker pauses so she can render what was said in that other language. Yet, a translator is not given the same amount of time, so she has to summarize, discerning what the most important things are that must be mentioned and what can be left out. And that's the skill I will apply now. I have listened to hundreds of hours of podcasts, read a pile of books on metabolic health and nervous system regulation. I have followed clinicians and scientists who often go against mainstream messaging. Thus, I need to warn you also that what you'll hear may sound shocking and hard to accept for some of you. But now, let's finally dive into the subject. To remind you, the author of the post struggled with weight gain, and her doctors told her it was due to her hormones, but she finally understood that it wasn't hormones, it was her nervous system, and recommended an app that helps her adopt new healthy habits. As a result of which, she says her nervous system got regulated and she lost weight. To that, I responded that it's likely both hormones and the nervous system because I just can't see how you can separate one from the other. Our nervous system depends on our hormones. So let's talk about hormones. If I were to ask you what the main female sex hormone is, I'm pretty sure you'd immediately know to say estrogen. So I'll start with estrogen. Everyone knows that estrogen regulates the female reproductive system, but it also has around 500 other functions. I won't be able to explain them all, of course, but what you want to know is that estrogen regulates metabolism and body weight in women by managing fat distribution, appetite, and insulin sensitivity. And also, estrogen acts as a booster for serotonin in women. And serotonin is a hormone that regulates mood, sleep, digestion, and appetite. In other words, serotonin is dependent on estrogen levels, and together they play a vital role in regulating the nervous system. Next to mention is that in fertile women, estrogen is produced mainly in the ovaries. But since all women are born with a finite maximum number of eggs that are steadily lost through ovulation and natural degeneration, after a woman runs out of eggs, estrogen levels drop, and when estrogen levels drop, the production of serotonin is also affected. But remember, estrogen is dissolved in about 500 other known functions. So there are many other changes that happen in your body during premenopause and menopause. However, just by understanding this, you'll probably agree with me that the woman's doctor wasn't necessarily wrong when she said that her weight gain happened due to hormones. Yet, I do agree that it's unfair to say to a person everything is normal for your age because it disempowers people and because normal isn't optimal. Normal is a statistical category, and the statistics are drawn from the population. And unfortunately, our population is one that struggles. So, when someone says normal for your age, it doesn't automatically mean this is healthy, and it definitely doesn't mean this is the best you can do. But people don't know that, and that's what triggers me too, just like the author of the post. Because we have options. As regards the option for how to regulate female sex hormones, one can consider starting hormonal replacement therapy or HRT. And before you shout out, seriously, is that what you came here to tell us? Hear me out. Once you run out of eggs, your estrogen levels will drop. The drop in estrogen levels will affect other processes in your body. that you would hardly be able to fix with journaling and meditation. I know that for decades women were taught to fear HRT, but I also know that the fear didn't come from nowhere. It largely came from how a couple of major randomized trials were interpreted and broadcast. As a result, several myths were spread, and women just accepted them blindly without questioning. The two scariest ones were that HRT causes breast cancer and that HRT significantly increases the risk of heart disease and blood clots. Since I promised to quote some sources in this regard, I'd encourage you to listen to Dr. Andrew Huberman's interview with Dr. Peter Attia, who discuss the study that resulted in myths and fear. Dr. Attia recommends HRT to many of his patients. Also, Dr. Sarah Gottfried is another doctor to look up, and she also talks about those studies in her interviews and videos. More, I can recommend her book, The Hormone Cure, where she explains the relationship between hormones and talks about supplements. By the way, I have it right here on my bookshelf. I personally learned a lot about cortisol from her book. There was also a great interview by Stephen Bartlett with neuroscientist and author Dr. Lisa Mosconi regarding her pioneering research on menopause and its impact on the brain. That interview left a strong impact on me as well, because I learned that as a result of dropping estrogen levels and hot flashes, irreversible changes can happen in women's brains. So for me, as someone who still uses my memory, language, and mental sharpness professionally as a coach and speaker, I felt I had to start HRT before I reached menopause so that I didn't lose the chance to fix things before the window of opportunity closes. It helped me to lose weight and feel more like me even before I changed my diet. Do I recommend that all women of premenopausal age who experience premenopausal symptoms start HRT? Absolutely not. First of all, I am not licensed to recommend or prescribe medications, but also because not all women might need it. Dr. Elizabeth Bright, whom I've mentioned in episodes 18 and 19 as a thyroid expert, is known for saying that a woman with well-balanced hormones shouldn't experience menopausal symptoms at all. Yet I knew I had a thyroid issue because I had an ultrasonography test in Latvia, despite the fact that my thyroid test here in the US came back normal, quote unquote, and I did have all kinds of symptoms. I'm sharing this all for one reason: to empower you to discern and to recognize you have options and you are allowed to choose the one that protects your quality of life. For me, menopause wasn't just a cosmetic issue. However, since the focus of today's conversation is on weight loss, let's move on to another option to consider, which is a specific diet I want to talk about. And once again, I don't see how a diet can be discussed without discussing hormones. So next up, insulin. Insulin is a hormone produced by the pancreas. Its basic job is to help regulate blood sugar. When blood sugar rises, insulin rises too, to move glucose into cells and into storage. Just a few seconds ago, I mentioned the thyroid. The thyroid gland primarily produces two iodine-containing hormones that regulate metabolism. Those hormones are known as T3 and T4, and the thyroid hormones directly influence insulin secretion, glucose homeostasis, and pancreatic development. In other words, the thyroid and pancreas are closely linked through metabolic regulation, so everything is connected and works together. Anyway, what causes insulin to rise the most are carbohydrates and sugar. When insulin is elevated, fat oxidation is inhibited. When insulin drops, fat burning becomes more available. So, if you want to lose fat easily without feeling hungry, consider trying a low carb or better yet, zero carb diet, because our bodies are like dual combustion engines that can run on two fuels, glucose or fat, not and fat. And if you'd like to hear more about this, check out episodes 12 and 15. If you keep eating carbohydrates, your body will mostly run on glucose, and insulin will keep showing up to manage that flow. But if you lower carbs enough, insulin comes down and the body starts switching toward using fat as its primary fuel source, including your stored body fat. So that's why I was a bit skeptical when the author of the post said that she cut sugar and carbs, but she was still gaining weight. It isn't impossible, but it's rare if sugar and fat are cut out of your diet completely. Usually, people on a high fat, zero carb diet lose weight easily. The weight loss may stall for some people for two main reasons. One being that their satiety hormone leptin production is dysregulated, so they still have cravings for a while, and the other could be distorted sleep patterns. I recommend listening to Dr. Anthony Chaffee explaining this to Rina Ahluwalia, the host of the Primal podcast, to understand it better. But I'll move on and say that when your body burns fat, it produces ketones, which are the preferred fuel type, according to some experts with whom I agree. Ketones provide real energy, and many people report that once they are adapted to producing energy from ketones, they feel steadier, have fewer crashes, fewer cravings, and feel mentally calmer. And that's why there are now ketone drinks sold on the market, and influencers like Stephen Bartlett recommend them. But they are quite expensive, and I think, why spend your money on that if you can make your body work on ketones in a natural way? How do I do it? Well, I'm on a carnivore diet, which means that I eat only animal products. Yes, you heard it right. I don't eat any fruits or vegetables, except I still drink coffee, some teas, and I use garlic powder when I cook meats. In the carnivore approach, one is not expected to restrict calories, and yet people lose weight quickly and easily. So, this was the part that I thought some of you might feel shocked about, namely that someone can eat only meat, eggs, and seafood and lose weight and improve health doing so. Now, if you heard this for the first time and feel still open to learn more, you'll find many YouTube videos and podcasts where this is discussed and people who've experienced incredibly positive results. What I'm trying to say is that it won't be possible for me to quote all the sources. For example, just this morning, one source came up on my YouTube feed. The video is entitled 90-Day Carnivore Diet Update, The Good, Bad, and Unbearable, and it was posted on the channel called The Williams Table. In the video, a couple shares their experience while on a carnivore diet for 90 days. They say that at the beginning they were afraid it would be hard to get to the end of the 90-day challenge, but then they got used to it. And that's my experience as well. I have been on this diet for more than a year, but I fell off this diet while in Latvia and I didn't feel good. Now I'm back on it and I'm feeling like myself again. Of course, there are many myths surrounding the consumption of red meat, which may make some people afraid of trying it, but I won't discuss them all here today. If you listen to carnivore experts enough, you'll get the answers to all your questions. My two favorite podcasts around this topic are the Primal podcast by Rina Ahluwalia and the Keto Carnivore Conversations with Dr. Robert Kiltz. What I'll say though is that carnivore is an elimination diet aimed at cutting out all plant products that cause all kinds of problems. And that's a concept many people find difficult to accept because for so long we've been told that veggies are healthy. However, I've been sensitive and even allergic to many vegetables and fruits since I was a child. And once I stopped eating them, my bloating stopped and my digestion improved. I have discussed some of the reasons why stay away from plant foods in episodes 17 and 18. I have been listening to podcasts at night, wearing headphones for several years. I started when I was dealing with insomnia due to chronic stress. Awake in the middle of the night, I wanted to keep my thoughts busy so I didn't need to think about things that made me worried. Many of those issues were related to feeling worried about my financial situation due to the matters related to my divorce. So at night, I listened to other kinds of content. By the way, listening to podcasts at night became a unique way for me to get back to sleep. Interestingly, meditation podcasts and sleep hypnosis didn't help me. At first, I thought it was because I had studied NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, and I heard all the key phrases in those meditations and hypnosis. So I wasn't able to not hear them as a professional. I guess I was listening analytically. But then I understood that the real reason was different. It was because my body was depleted, which is why I was constantly alert and I couldn't find peace because my body didn't feel safe. No app would have helped me. First, I needed to supply my body with all the nutrients it needed so that it started to trust that it was safe to relax. Now, I'm strongly convinced that even though the cause of your stress and anxiety seems to be a relationship or a financial issue or whatever, worrying about it depletes you, and the fastest way to regulate your nervous system is to nourish your body, not try to change your mental state mentally. It's just my experience. Anyway, listening to podcasts became my habit. As I was listening, I easily drifted away. But that reliably started to happen only after I regulated my hormones and changed my diet. These approaches allowed me to manage my autoimmune issues and reduce chronic pain, due to which I was not able to exercise. And then, when the pain was reduced, I was able to return to being physically active. And as I became more physically active, I noticed that on the days when I exercised, I slept better. So, physical activities help regulate cortisol levels. That's true, especially if you perform them outdoors, because it helps you to be in sync with your circadian rhythms. By the way, Dr. Andrew Huberman, who I mentioned before, talks a lot about these matters in his podcast named the Huberman Lab. Yet, during the years of perimenopause and beyond, women must be careful not to exercise too much, because too much physical exercise can stress out your body, and that may raise cortisol levels, which cause inflammation. Anyway, returning to what I was talking about before, which is listening to podcasts, the paradox is that even though experts suggest staying away from devices before bed and at night, using my phone this way helped me to distract myself from worries, calm my nervous system, and fall back to sleep more easily. So it may help you as well. Try it. But now it's time to summarize what I shared in this episode. First, I talked about hormones and why HRT could help some women. Then, I shared why ketogenic diet could be a good option to lose weight and improve overall health. And finally, I talked about how listening to podcasts at night helped me to distract my thoughts from worries and served as a pacifying method at night. So you can try this as well and see if it helps. Now, full disclosure, as a result of mainly these three methods, I lost 20 pounds, approximately 20 pounds. I know that the author of the post to which I responded said that she gained 40. However, I already said that I was skeptical about that post because some pieces just didn't seem to fit together. But I'm not going to dwell on those details here. Instead, I'll draw your attention to Bruno Panussi, who lost hundreds of pounds on carnivore diet and fixed other health issues. Look him up. I also improved my memory, got my autoimmune issues under control, as I already mentioned, started regrowing my hair after a massive hair loss, and had many more benefits. If you want to hear more about my journey, listen to my first episodes, especially episodes 12 through 20, which are the most health oriented episodes. After episode 20, I changed the title of this podcast and started focusing more on topics related to business, money, and communication. First of all, because that's what I have the highest formal degree in. And I have 3 decades of entrepreneurial experience. Moreover, financial situation is the main concern for so many people, and thus the main cause of stress, which will still be there in the background if you don't solve your financial situation. And it will impact how you feel and very likely even your weight. I see how I can help with these concerns. So that's what I have chosen to do. As regards my podcast, I've chosen to address people who feel they are late to fix their financial situation. So often such people feel shame and don't ask for help, which pulls them down even deeper in their financial mess. So I interview people who I think could give recommendations for my audience to consider. At the same time, I also know that with poor health, you won't be able to make good financial decisions and be competitive at your work or business long term. So, one is tied to the other because when people struggle financially and worry about it, their health also often goes down. Right now, before I conclude, I'll say that creating solo episodes like this takes a lot of time and effort. Therefore, if you found it valuable, please rate it and follow my podcast if you haven't already. And if you were watching this on my YouTube channel, please like and subscribe. Also, if you'd like me to create an episode on something specific, please let me know in a comment or via email. Okay, now that's it. Till the next time.